Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode number 14 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jumptown Skydiving. Conveniently located 70 miles outside of Boston in Orange, Massachusetts, it is where commercial skydiving in the United States was born. And I've been skydiving there for over 20 years. And if you have always wanted to check off skydiving from your bucket list, now is the time to do it. Fall in New England is the perfect time to book your tandem skydive. So go to jumptown.com and get all of the details. You can book your tandem skydive on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you can leave Peep more badass than anyone you know. You are going to love it. I'm telling you, the first time I made a skydive, it changed my life, and you got to do it. There's no better way to shake up your 2020 than going skydiving. So log on to jumptown.com. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Latini Creative Solutions. Now, for over 20 years, they have been helping brands revitalize, energize, and take the next step forward. They've got over 20 years of experience in design, print, and marketing, specializing in creative solutions that capture your voice and deliver your message. From supporting and energizing an established brand like Mistress Carrie to developing your company's identity and marketing campaigns, Latini Creative Solutions provides design that is thoughtful, focused, and creatively executed. They have been instrumental in helping me with the podcast, Cocktails in the War Room, in the very soon online store filled with merchandise that they've been able to help me put together. You can find them and get more details at latinicreative.com. Now, before we get to this week's episode, I want to send out a huge thank you to everybody that has gotten themselves a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass on Patreon. If you've never used Patreon before, it's a way for you to get extra special access to your favorite people. In this case, hopefully, it's a purple-haired former radio DJ and podcast host. If you go to patreon.com/Mistress Carrie, you can get all of the details on the Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass, which is going to give you access to exclusive content, blogs, photos, updates, behind-the-scenes looks at the podcast, polls, and very soon, because the Mistress Carrie online store is very close to being done, discounts on merchandise, and a lot more. We're just getting started around here. So I wanted to give a huge hello to all of the Backstage Pass holders. Renee, Ricky, Brianna, Michael, Julia, Mike, Christy, Eric, Tom, Mark, Amanda, Jeff, Melanie, Kathy, Julie, Paula, Carol, Janine, Kathleen, Paula, Rachel, Kathy, Jane, Annette, Ron, Kat, Monica, Ash, Keith, Debbie, Derek, Linda, Kellier, Heather, Kim, Trisha, Penny, Dave, Jim, Michael, Karen, Lisa, Mark, David, Krista, Carol, Travis, Ashley, Steven, Jonathan, Kim, Chilaxon, Donna, Peter, Wendy, Jen, and Danielle. Whew. Doesn't that sound like a party? Go to patreon.com/Mistress Carrie and get yourself a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. Okay, this episode of the podcast is a two-parter. I'm so excited for episode 14. Evanescence has been very busy during this pandemic. They're working on new music in an unconventional way, and I was super excited to be able to talk to members of the band. However, they're all in different places, and they're all doing different things. Amy Lee is holed up in Nashville, writing lyrics and working on a bunch of other stuff for the album. Other members of the band, well, they're scattered to the wind. But I was able to track down Will in between surfing at the beach and Troy in Atlanta. And both of those guys I have known for years before they even joined Evanescence. So this two-part episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast, the first part is Amy Lee in Nashville, and then later on in the episode, Will and Troy from, well, wherever the hell I could track them down.
Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
This is Marilyn Manson, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you're listening to, you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Amy Lee, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Are you kidding? Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy working on an album in the middle of a global pandemic. No big deal.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I had to get busy. It was like too depressing.
Yeah.
It's felt better to make myself busy.
Me too, but busy in a different way. Like I had to build a home studio because the radio station went off the air and start a company and start all over again. And
man, it looks great.
Thank you. This is MCHQ. So welcome to MCHQ.
I love it. I've got my space here too. We just actually just moved to Nashville last year from Brooklyn. I've lived in New York for 13 years and we finally just moved. Haven't had too much of a chance to see the town.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, there's so many people in rock now that are in Nashville.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's like people are taking over. Like the rock genre is taking over.
So true. Yes. It's just kind of become like a central gathering place between New York and LA. Like everybody from the coast is kind of coming here and making a new place out of a place that was already a music town, but it's not just a country town anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of it now, I think a lot of people are learning through the coronavirus that you've got to have the ability to work from home no matter what you do. Yep. But especially for you having a home studio with a family and trying to not be away from home to record because you're already away from home when you're touring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are. I am going into Nick's studio now. Nick Raskulinek's our producer. He is here in Nashville, so that has been super, super lucky. I wouldn't be able to do this if I was having to travel to be here. So we've been able to, continue the recording process. We had to create a bubble. I got the guys to get back here a month ago. On tour buses, we all took COVID tests, like just totally quarantined together for a while to get the next half of the album going and recorded, So I'm here in the aftermath, finishing lyrics, recording vocals, doing keyboard stuff, like just kind of doing it. Troy's coming up again soon, and it's happening. You have to just find a way. You just have to find a new way. It's harder, it takes more work, but you know what? It kind of makes it that much more satisfying when you actually get something done. Because it's like, oh my God, I did that. It's so hard even just to...
In spite of the obstacles you did.
Yeah, it's so hard to do anything. It feels awesome to be able to move forward in something that I feel like is feeding my soul. It is truly giving me like a reason and a way to like control some little tiny thing in my world and make something good out of a bad
Well, they
time.
say that saying about necessity being the mother of invention, like it really is true. And there's so much change, not only obviously in the world, but when you talk about the music industry specifically, I know on the radio side of things, my world was upside down a couple weeks before the pandemic really hit because the station got sold. Yeah. So I was already kind of moving my process along of building my studio and starting my company and doing all of this stuff. But then even radio stations that stayed on the air, they're trying to work from home and doing all of this stuff. And there has been, I've talked to a lot of bands now that I've got the podcast up and running about whether or not you want to release an album during all of this when you can't tour.
Right.
And whether it's a good business decision, mental decision. The Bitter Truth is the new album that you're working on, and you guys are doing it a little bit differently where you're still working on the album, but you're already releasing songs and videos that you guys have produced by yourselves. I mean, you're definitely doing it differently than you would have normally.
It feels good. It's crazy. I'm very busy. It's weird to be so busy in such a weird time, but weirdly, that was our plan before we started. We went in February, right before all the lockdown and everything, and recorded 4 songs. Like, just got together with Nick, and we just thought it would be cool to do this in a way that was more living in the moment and more it's kind of scattered. Like, we were on tour, and so the way we've been writing over the past more than a year now is we've been doing a lot of touring. We'd go do some shows, and then at the end of that cycle, like, find a place wherever we were. Like, one of the coolest sessions we had that we all got together to write was in Mont Tremblant in Canada, like out in the woods, like in French Canada, just like out there. It was an off-season like ski area, so it was like cheap. We found some Airbnb place that it was totally just desolate. And at the end of we'd finished our like Canadian part of our tour, and we were like, cool, we found this Airbnb and just camped out there for an extra week and wrote for a while, and then went home for our families for a couple weeks, and then went back out on tour. So just the whole mentality of breaking it up instead of being so locked into one extreme for such a long period of time. Because usually it's like the creation process takes forever, and the recording process takes it's just a whole thing where it's like, in the past, it's like my mind won't let me do anything else until I finish the one thing in front of me. And I've had to kind of, for a lot of reasons, it started with becoming a mom, like, had to be able to let my thoughts get interrupted and come back to what I was doing and come over here and do something that is good in this way, and then leave it and go do something else. And I actually found that I kind of like working that way. It helps prevent burnout, So like when we're on tour, it's not just like, I'm so tired of these same songs. All we do is just the same thing over and over and over. Instead of that feeling, it's like, we've got these songs in the background that we're working on. We're writing new music. Then there's the old songs that are kind of helping us remember who we are in the first place as we go forward into writing new music and branching in new directions and all that. So, I just talked forever, but it's been cool to just change the process. And that was the plan in the beginning. But then we ended up in 2020 and having to do everything like that and work with whatever we had when we could, is what it is. Like, we have to find a way. And interestingly, like, those limitations can be inspiration if you let it be. It's like, well, we have to do it this way, so how do we do it this way? And then you end up creating something that you wouldn't have because you wouldn't have been in that situation. So yeah, it's cool too, the releasing this way while we're still working, because first of all, releasing music, especially after so long, is so satisfying for us. And our fans, I know that that's what they want more than to go see us play a show of our old songs. That's what they're always going to say at the end of it. Like, man, we want new music. So that's one thing that we can do. We can be doing that aspect of, that's what we wanted. We know that's what they want. We're able to still connect with them and give to them and have the release of, sharing music and seeing their feedback and, just living in that moment together. But releasing a lot of the songs like singles, I wanted to give each thing a moment. Like, I love albums. We're making an album. It's going to be an epic Evanescence album. But at the same time, like, we live in a singles and standalones world. I listen to music like that a lot. And I like the fact that each song can kind of have a little celebration. I want to give that to more songs than normal.
Well, it's very old school. That's how songs used to get released. Artists would just release a 45 and it would have that moment. And it wasn't until later that it kind of evolved into an LP, where it all had to be this concise, packaged. And I've got to think, I'm not a creative person the way that you are. And I've got to imagine that when you are putting yourself in a creative place and getting inspired to write a record, that the way of doing it where you lock yourself in a studio for months and then all of a sudden you produce these 12 songs. By the time it gets to people hearing it and by the time it gets to people seeing you perform it live, I would think emotionally and mentally you've already gone someplace. So you're always working on an emotional delay with the music.
So true. That is exactly right. And what's been cool about this, like Use My Voice coming out right now is so right. Like, and it wasn't the plan. Like we were going to release that as like our first song back in the spring. And we waited because all of a sudden like we needed a different meaning. And we had a few songs in our pocket and we looked at Wasted on You and we're like, oh, this is this moment. And it's been cool to be able to just choose the moment kind of at the last minute because everything's changing from minute to minute. And the fact that got to wait and now it's having its time now as we're getting ready to vote and everything feels absolutely like that's what it was always supposed to be. And that song just got finished. Like it's still super close to my heart and those words are fresh and they're about something that I'm feeling now. So you just hit the nail on the head. I get to feel what I'm feeling now, process it, write about it, release it. And it's still, when we do our interview together, I'm still in that place. It's not a year later when I kind of, the issue's resolved and like, yeah, back a long time ago, I was, whatever. Going through a breakup.
It's also a scary thing because even just encouraging people to get out and vote somehow has become a controversial message. It used to be viewed as the most patriotic American thing you could do, which is to exercise your right to vote. And now just trying to encourage, say, young people to go and register to vote for the first time. Now, all of a sudden, you're making a slanted political statement on either side. Like, now it's controversial to vote.
Well, I'm trying to think about how to say what I want to say about that. Like, we should recognize that is really messed up and different. I mean, you want to be heard, right? I mean, obviously, that's what this country is. That's what democracy means. It means that this is our country. We make the decisions. We're the ones who vote in our leaders, and we have the biggest say. We're supposed to have the biggest say in what's happening and how we are represented to the world as well. It has become more urgent and important to me, and I think to a lot of people than ever right now. Just that we have to be heard because so many people feel misrepresented. I mean, I do. Like if anything's going to change, then we need to stand up and we can still respect each other. I think pretty much everybody I know has family members on different sides. We have to talk about this within our families. We have to have hard conversations about things beyond just policies and issues. It's about truth. And it's about our freedom. So some of these talks are really, really, really hard because people are seeing things in such different ways. And there's
no way to see it all the same way. The world influences us. I mean, you and I have been in the rock industry for decades now as women.
Yeah.
And we've both found successes in our own right, in our own lane. But nobody can say it's easy.
Right.
Because there hasn't been a lot of blueprints laid out for us by those that have come before. Because in a lot of cases, women are still charting new courses for the women that will follow them through those paths. But no, it's not easy. And so how could anybody look at this political climate? Men are going to look at it differently than women. White people are going to look at it differently than black people. Straight people are going to look at it differently than gay people. I mean, there's just... what's required is empathy, which I think a lot of people just have a really hard time having right now.
That is so true. That is so true. Empathy and love. We have to put that first, really, because we need to be unified. Nobody wants to live in this stressful, hateful place. We have to love each other. We have to come together. And I believe in the power of music. I really do. To just inspire people to search their own heart. You can't, no matter how hard and loud you scream, you're not going to get somebody to just, oh, okay, just agree with your side. It never
when's
works
the last
that
time
way.
somebody changed your mind while they were screaming in your face? Never.
We need to empower people to find their own information, to find their own voice and make up their own mind. That's the real point. Don't let anybody speak for you. Don't be lazy right now. Find out what's really going on, and then make your own decision about what that means to you and what you want to do about it.
It would be difficult politically in the United States right now if the coronavirus wasn't here, right? Because we're going into such a tumultuous time around an election, but we're also functioning when everyone is more isolated than they've ever been, and people are scared, especially people that have pre-existing conditions and are more susceptible to the virus. And so what we're all experiencing, no matter if it's Amy Lee from Evanescence in Nashville or, Mistress Carrie and MCHQ in Boston, is we all feel disconnected and we all have these challenges. And so I want to talk to you about overcoming the challenges with the band to get you guys all together. And I have this image of you having like a trailer park out in your backyard with all of the tour buses.
We totally talked about that when we first were discussing how do we get back together. We started the discussion like in June. We're like, okay, like how can we do this? How do we move forward? It's time, because we had been writing remotely since we had to split apart. And I just got to a wall where I feel like we all kind of did as much as we could do on our own, and we needed to start gluing our ideas together as a group.
And being you can do, like, you and I are on the internet and we're looking at each other and it's very personal, but when you need to be around the other creatives in your band to kind of be able to bounce things, and it's just not the same.
You can't jam like this. I'm not, seriously, with all the tech and gear, that stuff weighs you down so much. We need to be able to just plug in and sit in a circle to really finish this stuff up. So it was funny because we were talking about that conversation. It's like, how do we do this? And it's going to take a while, and you guys have to come a ways. Like, what about the families? Like, maybe we should just like caravan, like I have a big backyard. Like, maybe we can get like the buses stay back here.
It'll look like backstage at a venue.
I know. And then I quickly realized like that's not going to be okay with my neighbors. And then we were talking about doing it at Nick's studio. We didn't have to do that. We found another way. But it's funny because it is kind of, it's not fun, but it's when you have to pull together and find a way in a tough situation, that's when your real like character has a chance to come out, and you get to go, okay, like, are we really doing this? Or are we going to roll over? And we're like, hell no, we're doing this. How do we do it? We're going to do it right. And all of us are just 100% in the category of completely being safe and completely being not just respectful to ourselves and our family, but to everyone. Like, we were all hardcore home, quarantined and just isolated. So we all got COVID tests. Everybody got a negative result. We got buses to bring the guys from both coasts together. Jen, our guitar player, lives in Germany, so there is no way that we can physically be together. And we've had to work with her just remotely, and that's been really difficult. There's just no way around it. That sucks. We wish she was here. We've been communicating a lot, but that just hard. And it's working, but it just takes thinking outside the box. Like, we created a bubble. We came to Nick's, and it was literally just us. And Nick, our producer, and one engineer and a tech. And it was just us. Like, I've eaten a lot of ramen and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we just have like done this in a way that having to do things different, in this way and humble yourself in a lot of ways, actually, to make things work, has felt so good for me in a weird way, because it's taken me back to my roots. Like, remembering when we had to fight and scrape, like, and it was such an exciting, special opportunity to be in a recording studio and to be in a band and to be able to be calling this my job, that I get to make music for my job. It's not the thing that I'm pulling an all-nighter for, when, real life happens in the morning. Those feelings are back, like, because we definitely felt the option of just going, well, I guess we'll just sit this year out. And that's just not what I want. It's just been so frustrating and disappointing, and like, we have to output something. And it is that
where the heavy guitar sound of this record is coming from? Is that like angst of
yes, it absolutely is. And I have to say, like, when we got back together, like, ideas just flooded the room. Like, it was just like heavy and fun, and we were all just soaking up like being able to be together in a way that there's just a new fire in it. So I'm all that to say, it was weird too, because we weren't posting about it. We did it all just kind of totally on the down low, because it's like, I don't know how to talk about this. I know we're being safe, but who knows what that looks like, and we just have to get this done right now. So the fact that we were able to do that and be safe and everything was just, I'm just really grateful that we did it, and kind of amazed by everyone involved, and grateful that Nick is here, because now we can keep going. Like, this is taking a while. I'm still, like I said, I'm still writing lyrics. Like, we wrote music together, like from scratch when the guys came. So it's like, we're committing to laying down drum tracks and stuff with me not having the vocals done. That's different. That means me making a true commitment to myself. Like, okay, this is the way it is. There's no going back and changing it now. So it takes some like faith and like standing at the edge going, I know I can do this, when there's always a part of me every time we make music, every single time we make an album. And I think this is funny. I said this to Tim, we were recording, and he looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, really? Every time we do it, there's a moment where I go in my head, like, I can't do this. Why am I standing here thinking I can do this? I can't do this. And every time we do, and I'm so grateful and feel like it's not something I can truly control. It's hard to explain, but it's just something I have to be grateful for.
Well, it's a scary time. And I think for rock music, you know, to be losing radio stations like WAAF, that was a rock station for 50 years and a trend-setting rock station, and it's happening more and more all of the time. And so I think our genre of music is being forced to get creative and get to the point mentally where we're standing on that edge going, okay, you know, how are we going to do this? How are we going to keep our community together? I know here in New England, once AAF was gone, there's so few places. And that was part of why I wanted to start my company and launch my podcast and build my studio, because I'm like, there's so many rock fans in New England.
Yeah.
Boston's always been such a rock town. There isn't any place where you can get new rock music played in Boston anymore because the stations don't exist. So, you know, I had that same thing where I was like, okay, I'm committing to this.
Well, this is how good change really happens.
That's what I'm hoping.
When we're forced to find a new way. Yeah. And then we find out actually that new way is better in some ways.
Well, I can say fuck now. That's the joke now, is that I wasn't able to say fuck for 22 years. And now that I have my own studio, and it's like, people are like, oh my God, it's so weird to hear you say that. I'm like, well, if you knew me, you'd know I say it all the time. But you never got to hear me say it on the air. And now, it's just boring because I can do it whenever I want.
I did a radio interview yesterday, and I was like, I'm sorry I said the F word at the end of it.
Don't say
it's
fuck.
Okay, I'll edit it out.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where it's like, it's always in your head where you're like, don't say fuck, don't say fuck. And then it's the only thing you want to say.
Yeah, totally. Well, I will say one more time. That's the number one word of the year for me. Like, that's all we want to say. That is the number one word you want to say.
2020 is definitely, I mean, I just keep joking that, like, the Pentagon confirmed aliens. And, like, nobody even gives a shit about it. It's like, in 1999, if the Pentagon had come out and confirmed UFOs, it would have been all anyone was talking about.
Did that really happen? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, see? Yeah, so
there's too much going on. I woke up this morning and checked whatever was trending, and somebody in the airline said they saw a guy in a jetpack out the window.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even keep track of what's real.
I know.
Is that real? Are there jetpacks?
So, yeah.
And aliens?
Yes.
What the fuck?
So you remember when Tom DeLonge left Blink-182? And he started that UFO, like, organization that was like, and everybody thought he was fucking crazy. He had all these videos from American fighter jets of UFOs. And he was saying, they're real, they're real, they're real. Well, like 4 months ago, the Pentagon came out and said, those videos are real. They won't say they're aliens. They're just saying that they are confirmed UFOs.
They don't know what it is.
But they have confirmed that the videos are real, that they were real fighter pilots. They released video and audio. Yeah, like, that's what I mean.
Wow.
2020 is so crazy that we've got like murder hornets and UFOs and jetpacks, and it's just normal.
Yeah. That's a little bit scary.
Maybe I just changed the lyrics of one of the new Evanescence songs because now you're going to be inspired to write about aliens.
That's wild. I mean, but yeah, it's like you said, we're becoming desensitized because every day something is wild. And that's a little bit scary because we can't lose our heart of what's acceptable, when it comes to what's going on right now,
It's crazy.
I mean, we have to remember what we're okay and not okay with. And that's what people are standing up against.
Last weekend, I got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we got married at home and had a socially distancing wedding and had people like all spread out and watching, and we couldn't go inside, and we just it was really surreal and strange, but we kind of like threw a keg party in the driveway, and it was kind of awesome at the same time.
Aww,
so I'm on my honeymoon.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's beautiful.
you. How has it been trying to parent during all of this?
It's been a challenge. I know it's a challenge for everybody. I just have one, and I actually have faced feeling guilty about that. Just because I wish he had a friend, because there's just only so much that we can do to give him interaction, like and do our own lives, and he's so sweet. I love him so much.
Are you a teacher now too?
I mean, I'm more of a slime maker, like make a guitar out of a Kleenex box type teacher, like it's more, he's only 6. So it's not like I felt like we're falling way behind on stuff he would have been doing.
You're not trying to do chemistry at home in the kitchen.
No. Well, actually, he's super into science, and chemistry is the main thing, like exploding volcanoes and mixing different like little science kits to make crystals grow, or like all that stuff. That's what he's into.
Do it in the garage, Amy. Do it in the garage.
I don't have a garage. I don't have a garage. The driveway is ruined.
I was going to say, don't do it in your kitchen. Don't. The mistakes are made in the kitchen.
It's too late. It's too late.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you found the time with everything that you have going on to sit down and talk to me. I know that I'm going to be talking to Will and Troy for this episode as well, who I've known since before they were in Evanescence. And I'm so looking forward to catching up with those guys and finding out how they're doing as well. And so, it's nice to be able to see you.
Yeah, you too.
It's nice to be able to actually have a personal conversation and look each other in the eye and go, oh, you're that person. Okay, great.
It is. And it is all about connection. You said something about everybody feels so disconnected.
Yeah.
And that's true. And that has been what the music has done for me and us in a big way during this, is to help us feel connected to each other, and just the world, and to our fans. And that was what those videos were for, like making art visually, musically, whatever, just finding a way to draw connection within each other and see that, see and show that like our lives aren't that different. Like our hearts are the same, and there is comfort and unity and beauty in that. We can miss each other and know that, we're still going to see each other again. And this, I mean, I don't think this is the end of the world. I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, the aliens could come at any moment and end it all.
Man.
But you guys have tour dates scheduled.
Please save us. Take us there. Please.
You have tour dates already scheduled for 2021, so you're at least siding on the side of optimism.
That's right, for sure. We have to.
Yeah,
we have to. We're gonna get past this. We're gonna move past this eventually. We just have to just hang in there and remember that I don't know. I had to remind myself yesterday, like this isn't a bad day. Like you wake up sometimes and you just feel like depressed. Then everything's so out of control and scary, and we just don't know what's next. But at the same time, like, I'm not at a funeral today. I'm not in the ICU. Like, this is a good day. I need to remember, like, the things that I do have and appreciate my family and my life.
More.
Yeah, that's exactly
right.
Like,
I've joked that, had I known that when I saw Bush in February in Vegas was going to be the last concert I saw this year. Like, I would have sang a little more. I would have had one more drink,
Totally.
you know? Like, I would have enjoyed it even more and
right.
savored it. And
Totally.
And that's a lesson now.
And that's what we got to do. We got to seize that day.
The next concert I go to, like, I'm having that extra drink, you know?
Same.
Like, I can't wait.
I can't wait either. That's going to be so good.
Well, get back to work. Finish that album so we can see you. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for everything. Keep in touch.
Too. All right.
Let us know when you get the plan in place so that we know what's going on. All right. See you later.
Bye, Carrie.
Okay. So that is part 1 of the Evanescence episode. The next day, I got Will and Troy from Evanescence and looped them in to talk to them. Now, Will had been surfing all day and was taking a break to have a beer and wait for low tide. And Troy had to have his teenage son help him get the computer all worked up so that we could see each other and talk to each other and kind of reconnect. So the second part of the Evanescence episode number 14 of the Mistress Carrie podcast, this is featuring Evanescence drummer Will Hunt and guitar player Troy McLawhorn. Tomorrow is your birthday?
Tomorrow's my birthday, yeah.
Is it a big one?
Yeah, I mean, if you consider 29 to be a big birthday, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. Congratulations.
Fucking massive.
Enjoy the last year of your 20s.
But
Again.
You guys must be really important because you're breaking into that.
Oh, hell yeah. Where are you right now? That beach is beautiful.
I'm in New Smyrna. I've been surfing all day, and then I'm gonna go back out when low tide comes back.
Damn. Well, I appreciate your interrupting your pre-birthday, post-surfing activities for me.
It's okay. I needed to have a beer anyways.
And Troy had to interrupt his son's drum lessons in the drum studio for the computer. So
that's awesome.
So I talked to Amy already, and I kind of got the lowdown on how it's been recording this new album apart and then kind of together. And so I want to talk to you guys about what life was like before and then going into quarantine so you guys could actually be in the same room. What have you been doing?
Like the whole quarantine or just before and then now?
Yeah, so you guys were supposed to, you were off for a while.
Yeah.
And then you were going to start working on new music. When's the last show you guys played?
It's in Mexico last year.
Actually, we didn't play it. We were there to play it, and then the riot happened, and like all my shit got burned in a bonfire, and
there was a riot because the barricades fell, and they couldn't get them back together, and so kept getting postponed while security was trying to repair the barricades. There was a shit ton of people there, and so finally, I think it was 1:30 or 2 in the morning. They were like, we can't fix it, and us and Slipknot were still there. We were supposed to be the last ones to play. And we were going on right before them. So we were both hanging out there planning on doing the show. But the venue called it because they couldn't repair the barricades. So all these fans went on stage and our gear was up there because we were about to go on stage when all the shit hit the fan.
We were literally about to walk to the stage. They said, okay, guys, let's go. And we were literally about to go. And fun fact, I don't know, you probably know Richie Surnsey. He's the security guy for Limp Bizkit and us and a bunch of people. I'm sure you've met Big Richie.
Yeah.
And he was Limp Bizkit's security guy when the whole Woodstock thing happened. So when our sound guy went out to go set up for our show, and meanwhile, I think there were 2 different stages. Godsmack played that. I mean, everybody and their brother played that day. It was like 80,000 people at this place. And he went out to go set up his thing, and he noticed there was a barricade behind him, about 50 feet behind him. He's like, man, people are just going through that barricade like this. And he's like, that doesn't look right. He calls Richie on the radio and says, hey, man, you need to come look at this. People are just going through this barricade like it's a gate. And so Richie goes out there, walks that whole barricade, and sees that they're not bolted together. There's no bolts. So you know how a barricade works. It's like weight on it, and then they're bolted. So the entire barricade there wasn't bolted. All the barricades on the side weren't bolted. So the only barricade that was bolted was the barricade directly in front of the stage. And this thing is surging like a dam after a hurricane. Yeah. And he walked the whole thing. He's like, you guys got to fix this. And so these, the Mexican local staff or whatever goes out there and starts zip tying these barricades together. And he's like, no, that's not happening. Then they get out there with like these pipes, who knows where they got them, and start duct taping them to the barricade. He's like, nope, that's not going to work either. And this took like 3.5 hours. Meanwhile, all the other bands are done. So there's 80,000 people in front of the stage. And if we'd have played, surely people would have gotten hurt, for sure. If Slipknot would have played, people would have gotten killed. It would have
been crazy.
Yeah, it would have been bad, really bad. So we had to bail out, and we bailed out, and we get to the hotel, and Slipknot bailed out. We all left. We get to the hotel, turn on the TV, and there's our stage being trashed and my drums on fire. It's like,
yeah, one of my cabinets got put in the bonfire as well. But most of the rest of the band's stuff was too heavy for them to fuck around with.
But the grand piano did go off the end of the stage.
Yeah, they dumped some of it right off the edge of the stage, but we retrieved it the next day. It was crazy.
So back to your original question, that was the last show that we didn't play.
So that was quite a precursor and some foreshadowing for the shit show that was going to be 2020 then.
Holy fucking shit, man.
Yeah, it's actually a joke. We were joking about that. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, everything's just falling apart, The Mexico show and then pandemic. It's been a crazy year. Well, and, Will, our tour got canceled too. Europe.
Well, I've made this joke several times. Will, I didn't get a chance to kind of fill you in because I was talking to Troy before you jumped on that in February, WAAF got sold and got taken off the air, and it's been gone. Yeah. And so
sign of the times, man.
Right? So we've been making the joke that was what triggered the apocalypse and the shit show of 2020 because AAF going off the air just like triggered this domino effect, and it's just been a nightmare ever since. So if we could just convince somebody to put AAF back on the air and get me back in a radio station, everything else will go back to normal.
Everything will be righted.
Yeah,
we need to buy AAF and put it back together.
Seriously, I buy a Powerball ticket twice a week just in case. I'm like, if I win, can you imagine if I had control over a radio station and I get to be the boss of it?
Be the best radio station on the planet.
Well, that was part of the reason why I was excited to talk to you guys. I talked to Amy and I was like, I'm going to talk to Will and Troy. And I go back so far with those guys that I know them before they were even in Evanescence.
Way before.
Yeah.
So because I didn't get a chance to talk to you guys on the last couple days of WAAF, I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the old memories that you have of some of the crazy shit. Because now the station's off the air, we can dig out all the bad shit and nobody can fire us because they already fired us.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's carte blanche. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, the names
I was thinking about this when I knew that we were going to do this interview. I was thinking about, I think I was up in that station maybe 4 or 5 times with probably 3 or 4 different bands. And I remember some of the things that we did there and would be so politically incorrect and not acceptable in today's day and age at all.
You were playing drums for Tommy Lee on the solo record.
I knew this was coming up. I knew this was coming up.
And when he came up to the studio, I called a bunch of professional dancers. Actually, I can
entertainers.
They're strippers. It's a podcast. I can say whatever the fuck I want. So we called a bunch of strippers and we built a drum set out of naked women, and Tommy did a drum solo on them with his hands.
Yeah, it was a booty bongos.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was thinking about that. I was like, there is just no way that would fly these days, at all.
It could, because it was my show. And I think there are things that when you're trying to be
together, you're a female.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's like there are.
So wait, let's say this. Let's just say this. If AAF comes back on or whatever, we're in the Boston area, that means that you have to bring Amy and Jen into the studio.
And get dude booty bongos?
That's right.
Hell
dude
yeah.
booty bongos. Tanks and balls everywhere.
You know what? We're equal opportunity with me.
Gotta
And
go both ways.
you guys have known me for a really long time. And coming up in the genre of rock in the 90s and even before, but definitely in the mid to late 90s when rock really went crazy.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of girls around. And if there were girls around, you had to be willing to accept a certain amount of shenanigans, I'll call it.
Right.
And
right.
you got to have thick skin about it because at the end of the day, it's rock and roll. It's kind of what it's. I say this all the time. Rock and roll wouldn't exist if women weren't bitches.
That's a fact.
For as much as we are the catalyst for a lot of the inspiration, it definitely is intimidating. I remember back in the I was at AAF for 29 years. I was there for 7 years before I got on the air full time. And so I was around through the early and mid 90s, and then I got on the air full time in 98. So that was the heyday. I mean, you talked about Limp Bizkit and Woodstock 99. Like, I was neck deep in it at that point. And you had to be able to hold your own. Hell yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Great time to be in it. And think about how mellow, like let's say by the 80s hair metal standards, how mellow things were in the late 90s compared to those standards. I mean,
and there was no way you were getting caught in the 80s doing anything. Can you imagine with Twitter and TikTok and Snapchat and all of that now?
Yeah.
How anybody would have gotten away with anything back then?
It would have been a whole different scene.
Totally.
Completely. I mean, it was just like, talk about no limits. I mean, having played with some of these guys that were successful back then, and just hearing some of the things that those guys got away with, it's like, how did you get away with that? And then it's like,
there were no camera phones.
It's no internet, no camera phones. So it's like, it is what it is.
So so that's one of the things. I mean, we did the booty bongos at lunchtime live on the radio, so it's not like that was a secret. But I really wanted to talk about what memories you have of the shows that AAF put on, and just some of the, just because the station's not there anymore. I mean, I was there for 29 of its 50 years, and it's been my entire adult life up until this year. And so it's like, I want these stories to still, like, I can't pretend like that station didn't exist because it was amazing for a really long time.
I mean, it broke a lot of bands. I mean, it was like a taste-making station. Like, if you're, like, I remember, like, with Scrape, and Bill Burr at the time was our radio guy for RCA. And we did a show for you guys with, who was it for, man? It was in an arena in Worcester. That's what I remember.
We used to call it the Centrum. Now it's the DCU Center, or it was the Palladium, which is like the theater.
Centrum, I think.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was like us, Mudvayne, Disturbed, because they were just starting to break really big, and it was like a few bands like that. And I remember our radio guy said, if you guys are added to this station, that's a really big deal. Like, this is a taste-making station. And I mean, it was a big deal because our band, basically coming from nothing, we sold I want to say 87,000 copies the first week. And it was because of radio stations like AAF that people knew who we were. And I don't know what happened after that, but but anyway, but anyways, I do remember there was a huge part of like me being introduced to the industry and like what radio could do for your band. It's been
absolutely amazing. Well, that's, I met Carrie in, what year was it? Was it I don't remember.
It was when Seven Dust was recording Home at Longview Farms.
It was like 98 or something.
Yeah,
99.
99.
You were there for that?
I was there because I played on a song called...
Not you. I'm talking
Bender.
about Carrie. I know. I know that story.
Dude, I was there. Oh, I got a story for you in a hot minute. Let Troy finish, and then I'll tell you a story about that session.
Well, yeah, I just remember meeting you at the studio up there, and I gave you some music. And my band wasn't signed yet. And as soon as we got a deal with MCA, you started playing us on the station, and it was a big, push for us. It helped us a lot. So
yeah, your band was called Double Drive, and I still listen to those records all the time.
That's a great fucking record, man.
And I ran the Boston Marathon last year, and I will tell you.
Go, Carrie.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
What's
and
up?
I made, because I'm a fucking music nerd, I made a playlist of music that would go in succession for the route. And one of the songs that was there to help me towards the finish was Imprint.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
And I listened to that while I was running like the last couple miles, because the Boston Marathon is a fucking bear.
Did you finished it? You ran the whole thing?
Come on, man!
Damn, I didn't know you ran like that. That's
six
incredible.
hours. Listen, I'm no John Connolly, okay?
He's doing like Iron Man stuff, isn't he?
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I finished it. I mean, I raised $17,500 for a veterans charity to run it.
That's great.
They had a live broadcast at the end waiting for me, so I didn't have a choice. Like, I had to finish. But it took me 6 hours, 24 minutes, and 50 seconds, but I finished it.
That's a long-ass time to be running.
Yeah, it's a long-ass time, man. In the rain, and then it got hot, and then it got windy, and then it rained again. It was fucking miserable.
What was the condition of your feet at the finish of that?
My feet were fine. So
really?
They do this.
What brand of running shoes are you wearing?
New Balance.
That's a testament to that. Hey, that's a Massachusetts company, isn't it?
That's right. Well, so is Converse and New Balance. Yeah, all those Chuck Taylors those rock stars have been wearing for years are made right here in the Commonwealth.
You should have run it in some Chuck Taylors.
I definitely would not have finished.
Your feet would have came off.
Yeah, the answer to that question would have been that your feet were bare on the bottom.
Yeah.
Muscle.
So the marathon pre-bombing used to have these military guys that in full rucksack would ruck the marathon in uniform with the rucksacks on.
That's crazy.
And then after the marathon got bombed, they call it the tough ruck. The tough ruck wasn't allowed on the course because they had these giant rucksacks, because you got to go through checkpoints and all of that stuff now.
Right.
So what they did was they moved the tough ruck to the Battle Road Trail, which is literally the grounds where the revolution was, like the shot heard round the world, the British are coming, Paul Revere. That's a historical park. It's a federally protected park. And they do the tough ruck in there. So after the bombing happened, the unit that I was embedded in Afghanistan with was called up and activated to protect the city after the bombing when they were hunting for the terrorists. The next year, the first marathon after the bombing, the Tough Ruck was along the Battle Road Trail, and all the guys I was in Afghanistan with did it. So I did the Tough Ruck in combat boots with 50 pounds on my back for 4 years, which is the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
And that helped me get ready to actually run the actual race. So technically, I've done the marathon 5 times.
Wow.
Good Lord.
You're
I got a problem.
I think we're about the same age. We're 29, right? So that's pretty impressive
29 and a
49.
couple. Yeah. Yeah. The body doesn't work exactly the way that it used to, but it's still holding up okay.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about mine.
No,
yours isn't holding up okay?
No, I'm okay, but I know it by this. Like, it used to be no fear, like going in the water and going surfing. Like, it could be, 5 feet overhead. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And now, if it's head high, I'm like, man, I don't know. It's like, I'm not going to be that guy that you see on the news. A 49-year-old man washed on shore was lost surfing. I can't do it anymore. It's like I can't hold my breath for 2 minutes like I used to be able to if I need to.
I know we're talking in circles, but I did an episode of the podcast, I was telling Troy, that had Mark Morton from Lamb of God and Doc
Yeah.
Coyle from Bad Wolves and Chris Trainer from Bush, and we did a guitar player roundtable. And
Chris.
one of the things, it was really great. And one of the things that came up was, what advice to protect your health would you give to your younger self because of how hard on your body playing music is, both behind the kit and being a guitar player? So I'm interested in what both of your answers to that question would be.
I would have so many things to tell myself. It'd be a long list. It'd be like a scroll. I started drinking and smoking cigarettes when I was a kid. Like, ridiculous. I wish I could have told myself back then that was a bad idea, because I can feel, as I get older, even though I don't really smoke that much anymore, every once in a while, if I have a couple of beers, I'll have a smoke. But I can feel that, it's taking a toll on me. I have to. Me and Will were doing the insanity workout for a while, and I was out of breath, like super bad, even after doing it for like 3 months. It's hardcore. I'm sure I damaged my lungs and my brain.
Mine would be like, God, man, like stretch. Like I would tell myself, you've got to stretch. You've got to do some yoga and you've got to stretch. And drink a lot more water, because it's the neck, it's the shoulders that are killing me now,
Well, as a singer or a guitar player, you can kind of hide. The drummer, which somebody like Lars, who's kind of set this bar for heavy music and playing it at a high level, like
at his age.
That's what I mean. There's a guy like Charlie Watts or somebody that's just kind of back there doing his thing. No disrespect to Charlie Watts, but like your style of playing is different, and you've got to be able to maintain that.
Yeah. Charlie Watts plays golf, and I respect it. It's beautiful. It's funky and all that stuff. But Lars, Morgan, Tommy, myself, a lot of these guys, we play fucking football, and it's a totally
Shannon
different
Larkin.
thing. Shannon Larkin. Last time I saw Shannon. We had a really good conversation about it, because, it's public knowledge. He had a stroke several years back, and it was we talked about it because, and Roy Mayorga also, same deal. He had a mild stroke, and I'll bring it to the trifecta. Terry, the guitar player that was in Evanescence forever from Cold, he had a stroke. Now, he had a stroke for different reasons, but both Roy and Shannon had strokes from slinging their head too hard, and it tore the aortic nerve. And if you see Shannon now, he doesn't sling it like he used to. He plays incredible, and he still looks killer, but he's not like abusing himself. And we talked about it, and he's kind of the same conversation. Like, he's like, man, I wish I hadn't have done that to myself for so many years. And I kind of look at it the same way, but it's instinctual. Like, when you get up there, you just go. It's a feeling thing. I don't get up and play and go, okay, now I'm going to do this move and I'm going to do that move. It's the music that moves you. And for him, my question for him was like, well, how are you just not doing that? He's like, it was hard. He had to really tell himself and have his tech basically grab his leg really hard if he started to do it, to sling his head too hard. Like, hey, no, you can't do it, man. And I'm not there yet, but I don't know. I don't want to stroke out either.
Well, it's trying to extend those years that, back when we all got into it, it was like being 29 and some experience like we all are now seemed so far off in the distance that you weren't even worried about it. And, to use a local hero, at least, he used to be Tom Brady, like just trying to hold on to those last couple years in the sun, man.
Hey, Carrie, real quick, he's my hero.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Bucks. I'm a Bucks fan.
Oh,
Go Bucks.
I'm sure you're loving it right now. I'm sure all those Brady jokes, you got to swallow them all back down now that he's your guy, right?
Y'all just wait for those Bucks this year, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
But you're right. Like, he's an inspiration, because that guy is killing it at his age. It's like Lars killing it at his age, And we can all be honest. Lars was no choir boy. Lars had good fucking time, you know. And I don't know how he is now, but I know that he had a good time.
All those guys had a good time back in the day. It's amazing that they're all still like, that was one of the things we were talking about. That got brought up this conversation. How does Jason Newsted get out of bed with the way he used to whip his head around during those Metallica sets back in the day?
Well, think about this. He had some problems. He had bad back issues and neck issues, and I mean, I did the Gigantour with Device with David Draymond.
Yeah.
A&I's band, and Newsted was on that bill, and I got to hang out with Jason a lot because Mike Mushock was playing guitar for him. So, and I got to talk to him. He talked about his back and like how he doesn't know how he did it, you know, and he couldn't do it now. I mean, he's got like pins and stents in his neck. And
I've been fortunate, I guess, because I don't really have any back or neck or any issues of that.
Yours is your internal organs.
Yeah, I've destroyed myself internally, but you know, just the muscles and the organs, no bones, no joints. Yeah, I've never had any of those issues.
Which is incredible.
Pretty serious rock neck though.
Yeah, because he still slings his neck around, and also my riser's 4 feet off the ground. He'll jump off of my riser, you know, and still does it. I mean, not bad for a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
With a few years experience. So to go back to the Seven Dust home era, like the late 90s era, so they were one of many bands in that time frame that recorded out at Longview Farms. And the studio keeps coming up in the podcast because so many bands recorded there at that time, and so many bands have these crazy stories about it being haunted and the crazy parties that were there.
It's a cool-ass place.
It's a really cool place.
Yeah.
And because I was on the air at night back then, and they were so far out in the boonies, the Seven Dust guys would call me at like 8 or 9 o'clock and give me a shopping list. I'd send the intern out from the radio station to hit we call it the packy, but the package store, the liquor store, and the grocery store. They'd come back, and then I would leave work at midnight, drive the 25 minutes or whatever to get to Longview with all their groceries.
That's awesome.
And then I would stay up all night with them because they always recorded at night. So I would stay up all night and watch them record and hang out. And then when they would get ready to go to bed at like 7, 8 in the morning, I would go home, go to bed, get up and do it all over again the next day.
God.
And I'm not talking out of school, because the last time Seven Dust came to town, LJ told this story at the House of Blues on stage. The one night I decided to sleep at the studio, I slept on a couch, like in like the common area, and I just curled up on the leather couch and went to sleep. And I woke up because we had been partying really hard and it wasn't safe for me to drive. And I woke up and the aforementioned John Connolly mistook the living room as the bathroom.
I love these stories.
and I woke up to this noise of water hitting, you know, the glossy pages of a magazine.
Right.
And he was peeing on the coffee table literally in front of me, and that's what woke me up.
Oh shit. They've got a lot of those stories in that.
They've got a lot of PP stories.
Yeah.
And then you remember Dennis, who was their tour manager forever and a day.
Yeah.
He's a mask guy, and he and I have known him forever. I went and woke Dennis up. And I was like, dude, because by now John is back asleep, but in a chair, and he hadn't quite secured the landing gear. And so Dennis went into the kitchen and got salad spoons, like wooden kitchen spoons, and went over and rectified the landing gear situation.
Oh my God. That's a whole new meaning to tossing salad.
Seriously. And then the next day, John had no memory of it. And they're all like, dude, you done fucked up, because she's going to go to work at the radio station and this shit's going to be all over the air in Boston. And so it comes up. So I'm standing at the Seven Dust show, watching the show with Mark Tremonti next to me. And he and I are watching Seven Dust, and LJ starts telling the John Connolly P story. And Tremonti turns to me and he goes, there's no way this is a true story. That's my best friend. If he peed on you, I would have known about it. And I was like, dude, it happened exactly like LJ is telling these 3,000 people right now.
Oh my God.
And
Sure, John
Mark
loves
was
that.
like,
He's like,
oh yeah, he loved
was he looking
it.
at him like, the fuck, bro?
Shut the fuck up.
Really?
And I'm just shrugging my shoulders because I'm like, this is the one time I'm not the one that brought it up. LJ brought it up, and it just always comes up now. So
That's so awesome, man.
that was just
That's
one
so
of the
awesome.
many, like, and I remember Clint introducing me to Troy and saying, like, this is my boy, and he's got this great band, and they're trying to get a record deal. And I remember, I think I might still have the original Double Drive demo that you gave me.
Which they were called MK Ultra then, right?
Yeah.
MK Ultra?
Yeah. We recorded a demo at some friends of ours' studio, and we didn't have a record deal or anything. They were helping us out. We weren't really paying for the studio time, but when we got our deal, we, gave them a chunk of money. And, but yeah, that was a long ass time ago.
Yeah, it's like, so I want to bridge the gap for people that are listening between the early days of Scrape and MK Ultra and Double Drive when we all met, and the journeys to how you ended up in Evanescence, because you guys have played with so many different bands and your story kind of goes all over the place.
Not by design. I would have been cool like if Scrape was world famous, and it had just been that band. I mean, fortunately and unfortunately that didn't happen, and I think that, like, I met Troy and Clint and Corey back we're talking 1989.
Yeah.
And we were playing opposing clubs in Panama City Beach during spring break. They were playing at La Villa and my band was playing at Spinnaker.
I think we met first in Fayetteville, though.
Oh, right. Before you guys were even out as a band. They came to see my band because I was playing with some guys that were older. My main thing is that we've been together a long time, and always said and grew up playing in the same clubs together, even playing opposing stages. And one day we're going to play together. And then, Dark Day happened, whatever. But I think that when we've all had the survival instinct that comes from that time. And I think that for us, like, Scrape didn't work out. All right, I still love to play music. I'm still going to play music. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. Troy, same thing, and Double Drive was signed before Scrape was signed by at least a year. And I remember asking him, hey, how'd you guys pull this off? And, it's just like we've all kind of helped each other out all through these years. I know Clint obviously helped Troy out, helped me out. Clint is who put me in Stuck Mojo with Corey. I mean, we've just been there for each other. And if I spend too much time thinking about, holy shit, we're so connected and have been for so long. But I mean, I just think that we're all like I said, I would have been cool with just being in one band. But the upside is that I've gotten to play with so many different cool people, and ultimately was able to play with these guys that I consider to be my brothers. I mean, we're lifers. I don't know that Dark New Day will ever do anything again. It'd be cool as shit if it did. But we did get to have that experience, and that's pretty cool. And we're all still in it. I just talked to Clint maybe 3 weeks ago and just said, man, I mean, who'd have thought that, 4 guys standing on the pool deck watching a wet t-shirt contest in 1989 would still be doing this, at this level, and we're still relevant, and it's incredible. It's a blessing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Last time I talked to him when his solo record came out, the radio station was still on the air, and we talked, and I said, Clint, I want to say something to you, and I don't want you to think that I'm being condescending. I'm not, like, please don't read. This is just genuine from me to you.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Right.
For the demons that you've tackled, for what you've gone through, from not being in Seven Dust, which was, so hard for him, but also for everyone that loved him and the fans and everything. And now to be doing so well, not only with Seven Dust, but being able to bring these other projects to life, and that he's healthy and raising a beautiful family. I said, I'm just so proud of you, because the road of rock and roll is paved with people that weren't able to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Millions. I mean, not millions, but a whole lot of them. That's for sure.
And he turned it around big time. He's like a different guy, and he's been, working on himself for a long time now. It's hard to believe it's been so long, but I'm proud of him too. He's a great guy, and I've known him for a really long time. I mean, we were kids, learning how to play guitar and living in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we went through a lot of this business together. So, yeah, I feel very fortunate to know all the people that I know in this business and meeting Will and, starting a band. Dark New Day is one of my favorite bands I was ever in. Loved the music in that band, and it would be cool if we did something again.
Like, I remember, Will, when you came up with Tommy.
Yeah.
And I was like, how the hell do you, I guess you could ask the same question of Taylor Hawkins, how the hell do you climb behind the kit of a project when your frontman is such an amazing drummer? And I remember asking you that question 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And you were like, it's intimidating as fuck, but I'm doing it.
It was a chain of events that kind of happened with that. And it really kind of put into my mindset, like, okay, that whole saying of, if you've got nothing, you've got nothing to lose. And, I'd be lying if I said when I walked into that audition that, and I was flying out there for that my butterflies in my stomach and I felt like I was going to throw up. But the reality is that what happened was when I went in for this audition, it was Marty O'Brien, the bass player,
He's a New England guy, a Rhode Island guy.
Yeah, that's right, Rhode Island. He was out on the Extreme Steel tour with Pantera and Slayer and Static X and Scrape, filling in for Static X, and that's where I met him. And I found out that he was filling in for Tony and that he was actually the bass player in Methods of Mayhem, and I'd never met Tommy. So, of course, I wanted to pick his brain, like, man, what's it like hanging out with that dude? And we had a really quick conversation. And at the time, Stephen Perkins from James was playing for Tommy, and as Marty left my bus, I was like, hey, man, if Stephen shits the bed, give me a call. I was like, ha, 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 whatever. 6 months later, he tracks me down. He calls me up, through a person, through another person, through another person. I get this message on my answering machine. Yes, it was an answering machine. My cell phone.
The Wayne's World go back in time thing.
I know, man. Well, think about that. It's so crazy. And I was like, hey, man, we're auditioning people tomorrow, man. You got to get out of here. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I was like, well, who's out there? I'm not going to, I broke. I'm like, I'm not going to spend the last money that I had to fly out there if you've got, a ringer. He's like, no, it's nobody good. You don't worry about it. Just come out. I'm like, great. Spend my last $600, fly out there. I go into Third Encore. There's it's a cavalcade of fucking people in this fucking hallway. And as I walk in, all these guys are doing their thing. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And so I'm hearing who's in the room, and they're fucking crushing it. I'm looking around like, who the fuck is that? It was Brian Tichy, who's not a nobody. He's a bad motherfucker. And I'm like, thanks, man. So Viggy, Tommy's assistant, walks out. They're going to take a little break. He walks out. He's looking down the hallway to make sure he knows, everybody's checked in. And he comes up to me, big Italian guy's like, hey, who the fuck are you? I'm like, I'm Will. I'm Marty's friend. I'm out here to audition. He looks on his paper. He's like, you're not on the list. Get the fuck out of here. I'm like, no, dude. I'm serious, man. And he's like, no, you got to fucking go. And he calls security. He's like, hey, come get this fucking asshole. He's got to get out of here. I'm like, oh, no, here we go. And I'm just, what are you going to do, At the right moment, at the right time, Marty and Tommy walk out, and they see Viggy, about to crush me. And Marty's like, hey, that's my buddy, man. That's the guy I was telling you about. He's like, he's on the fucking list. And he's like, no, that's my buddy. He's like, you just got saved, dude. You're going last. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, whatever. And so at that point, I'm like, I didn't even think I was going to get to play. So come to find out, when I finally do go. So I'm the last guy in the hallway, and I hear this guy playing in there. He doesn't sound like he's playing very well, but the only thing that I notice is that through the door I can hear they stop playing, and I hear somebody go, wah, scream. And I'm like, that's weird. So he leaves. They call me in, and in the room is Tommy, the band, but it's Tommy, it's Stephen Perkins, and they're going to put Brian Tichy on an electronic kit. So I'm playing with 3 other drummers that are phenomenal, and that's my turn to get up. So I get up on the drums, and they're like, hey, man, check this out. Tommy walks over to me, and it's a picture of the guy that was just in there. and it's this drummer blowing fire like Gene Simmons. And so what had happened, the scream that I heard was that guy at the end of the song blew fire. So this guy blew fire, man. How are you going to beat him? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm going to shoot rockets out of my ass. And he loved it. And then we played, and, I started playing. I just put my head down. Fuck it. I don't care. Everybody's looking at me. I don't give a shit at this point, and just went for it. And, it worked out.
You could have suggested butt bongos. It probably would have gotten you the gig, too.
Yeah, that would have probably sealed the deal a little sooner. But... hey, I foresee that we're going to be at AAF with Mistress Carrie, and there's going to be butt bongos.
There's going to be butt bongos, man. Like, we just got to do it.
We're doing it, dude.
So then, obviously, with your multiple bands, the both of you, you end up in Evanescence together. And when I got that word, that I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And you've been in the band now for quite a while, and you
over 12 years.
Yeah, so you survive a riot in Mexico, because I'm trying to get us up to like modern day now. And now you're locked down. So where did you ride out the lockdown with your families, like individually? Where were you guys?
Orlando for me. We were just home. Because I was doing shows with, in between Evanescence stuff, I've been doing shows with Slaughter. And, just, having a good time, living some memories.
I had the biggest
guys.
crush on Mark Slaughter in high school.
I know, right?
It was like fucking painful.
He's such a good dude, man. He's still got the pipes, and, so it's fun to go out there and play. But I was doing that, and then all of a sudden all that stopped, and it was just, we were all home. And we had actually gotten together and done 4 songs already in February.
Yeah.
I think like right before everything went to hell. And then the idea was to go and do the European tour, and then we were going to come back, and then that just got shot to shit. And initially I think I remember that it was like, oh yeah, lockdown's going to be for a couple weeks. Okay, well now it's 4 weeks. Well now it's 2 months, and then things it's just like, oh my God.
Initially we were going to go back over in September. We figured that'll be plenty of time, but then now it's September of next year.
Yeah. You guys rescheduled your tour dates, and they're for 2021.
Yeah.
Troy, where did you ride out everything? Where are you?
I'm in Atlanta. I was just hanging out at my house, in Atlanta. I got a pool, so I'm good.
Yeah.
For the first 2 months, you couldn't even get on the beach to surf. They wouldn't allow you to go surf, which is really asinine, because if you think about it, that's a pretty socially distanced activity. And you're in salt water. You're not going to catch anything, but they weren't allowing anybody on the beach or in the water at all. So
I think they were worried that if you got hurt, that they were going to, that there would be no way to treat you. Like up here, the virus got so bad quickly in New England that the fear was, the hospitals aren't going to be able to handle anything but COVID patients. So, because I'm a skydiver, so I just want to go skydiving, and it's like, well, yeah, but if you get hurt, how are they going to treat you safely? Is there going to be medical equipment? You're going to expose, whatever. And they finally opened up the drop zones up, around the country, just like now you're able to go surfing and stuff.
Yeah.
But
thank God.
It was squirrely for a while.
It never got super bad here. It took a minute for it to get here, actually. Everything was pretty cool around here for a while you guys up in the Northeast were dealing with it hard.
Yeah.
It was bad up there, man.
Now it's good up here. It's not perfect by any means, but they were really strict with it. The problem is, which is something I wanted to talk to you guys about, is the gig economy is being hit disproportionately hard.
Yeah.
Meaning, people that work on tips in bars and restaurants, live music venues, all of the techs, the support staff, all the roadies, the bands, and the ripple effect goes out to then, the radio people. That part of the business, we just had 3 legendary bars right on Boylston Street that are on the route, like the finish line of the marathon. that are going out of business because they can't sustain. And it's not like Boston doesn't have college kids. You know what I mean? And so you got bars going out of business in Boston.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. I mean, if you think about it, it's unfucking real, man. And it's
sad.
I think that it's really sad because, like I think about the crew guys that are such a massive part of this. And I saw a post that somebody made that it's just like, for any type of an arena show that you go to, you're literally looking at 500 people that are employed for one show in a town. Now, some of those people are obviously with the traveling crew and band and all that stuff, so they account for some of that. But then there's so many local people, from the ushers to the local hands to the people selling concessions to the usher. I mean, you just name it, like to the radio
local
station that's promoting
electricians,
it.
the fire staff, the
all
security, everything.
Yeah.
All of it. And it's fucking devastating. And, one of America's biggest exports is our entertainment industry. It's our music, it's our concerts, it's our movies, it's our TV shows. All of that shit stopped. And I just saw today that the new Batman movie with the Robert Pattinson guy or whatever, they started production 3 days and then he tests positive. They just stopped it again.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens next. And I don't know that, and I don't want to get political, but I don't know that things are being handled right. I think they're not, because I think about our crew. Let's just go with that. That's real simple. Our crew, and these guys dedicate their lives to doing this just like we do. And I think the thing is that they, when Evanescence isn't touring, these guys all have other things that they do in their field, in the business. They're all able to do other things. And when this happened, it's like hitting the brakes hard. Now what the fuck are they doing? I know that my drum tech is out digging cell tower ditches to run cell tower lines right now in the Florida heat, because that's what he's got to do.
He said he actually got methane poisoning this week because they're digging out in the swamps, and the methane comes out when they go down far enough. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy what's happening.
Talk to me about, for somebody that's not a musician, because I always want to make sure that for people like myself that have no musical ability at all, talk to me as musicians about the importance of a really good crew. Like how important a good drum tech is, how important a good guitar tech is for you to be able to give the best Evanescence performance that you can.
It's a total game changer. I mean, I remember the days of touring when I was my own guitar tech. It was a nightmare because you've got to drive the van. You've got to settle, at the end of the night. You got to drive through the night to try and follow the tour bus to get to the next city where you're going to play. Then you got to set all your shit up in the morning, do the sound check, change strings, do all that stuff. And I mean, you're wearing all those different hats. If we didn't have all those people to do all that, we wouldn't be able to do things like the interviews we do and, things that we do on the road, because they're there to take care of that stuff.
And I think that a really good crew, and I've said this to everybody, and I've seen it with my own eyes, but for example, take your sound guy. You can be God's own band. You can have the best songs and you can be the tightest band on the fucking planet. But if your sound guy sucks, you suck. And there's all these little components that make up what comes to that sound guy. And the people that are handling that are your drum techs, your guitar techs, your lighting techs who see or help everybody see it, make it come to life. And they all got to be operating on the same plane. And if you've got a great crew, it elevates your show. It elevates your performance.
Absolutely.
And the way that people perceive it. And it makes or breaks bands. I've seen a lot of bands that had all the ingredients and then they go out and tour and they're a horrible live band. And then some bands, mind you, are just horrible live bands. But some bands are really good live bands, but it doesn't transcend because their crew's not happening. It can make or break a band. It really can.
Yeah.
And, one question that I've always asked musicians over the years is that Spinal Tap moment, right? Where they get stuck in the pod. When you're your own guitar tech and you're out there playing a show with 15, 20, 30,000 people watching,
There's nothing worse.
There's not having a person there to solve that A, can recognize the problem before it becomes an emergency, but then have a plan to fix it so that you can continue doing your job. I mean, what are you going to do? Shrug your shoulders at Amy and be like, sorry, I can't play this solo because my guitar's broken?
Yeah.
It's really good that our bass player, Tim, has a bass tech, because that really is what he does. if there's a problem, he literally
just
like
stands
his bass
there.
Stops,
he picks up his phone.
Just goes and stands there and just waits for somebody to come fix it. And I'm looking at him like, what the fuck, man? Like, look at your shit. It's just like, I don't know. Like,
he starts texting.
He starts texting. Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? I love that guy to death, but this is one of those things where you look at it, you're like, yeah, thank God he's got a good tech, because we'd be lost. We were in the studio on this record, and he had to go do something. His family was in town, and he left early one night. We wanted to keep working, and we were trying to figure out how to turn his bass rig on, and couldn't figure it out. So Nick, our producer, unplugged it and just plugged straight into the cabinet. So Tim comes in the next day, and lo and behold, Tim's bass tech is not there. And so Tim is literally like a monkey tapping on an airplane, like, like, I'm like, dude, you don't know how to plug that in? He's like, nope. Didn't know how to turn it on. Didn't know what button to put on his setting. I mean, he literally did not know anything about how to plug in his bass. I mean, am I lying, Troy?
Yeah, that's a true story.
He really did not realize. And I'm looking at him like, really, dude? You don't know how to turn on your bass? He's like, no, man. And what's so funny is that for him, he's like, Charlie Brown, like, whatever. And he's an incredible bass player, guitar player, musician, all these things, but can't turn on his bass rig.
Well, I've had to learn, in the 6 months or so that AAF went off the air, building my own studio so that I could start my podcast and start working on all of this syndication stuff and all of these things moving forward. I used to have an IT guy and an engineer.
Right.
And so if something broke in the studio, I got to be like, I don't know how to fix it. And now, I call my studio MCHQ. And now if something breaks in MCHQ, I have to figure it the fuck out. And it's a learning curve from hell.
Yeah. But
figuring
see,
it
you're
all
doing it.
out.
That's
I have
the thing.
to.
And that's the thing about Tim is like, he didn't come up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He came up hard like we did. Like, at some point, I'm sure he knew how to plug his shit in. I know he did. But I don't know, man. It's just like, it's the funniest thing, man.
It's one of those muscles. If you don't use it for a while, you lose it.
Like, I can fix my stuff. I can totally track it down and fix it. Troy, he can hunt it down. He can fix it. Jen, same thing. If something's wrong, she knows what's up. Tim is just like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to sit here and play until it comes back on. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen.
The way you guys are recording this record, I talked to Amy about it, is a little non-traditional. Like you said, you did 4 songs and then you were supposed to go on tour and then you didn't. And we were joking that the idea of building a trailer park in her backyard for all of you guys was there for a while to try and figure out how you guys were going to quarantine and be able to get together and record. And I think it's really interesting that you guys have already released singles, but you still don't even know when she's literally working on the record. That's why I couldn't get you all synced up at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't even know when your record's coming out, but you've already released songs.
Yeah.
Well, but those were from the first 4. And
okay.
We, again, like the whole plan, we had this whole plan, man, that was laid out, how we were going to do it. And then obviously all the crap happened. And then, but we didn't want to not put some stuff out like we said we were going to do. It's been a long time between records. I mean, we did Synthesis, and that had 2 new songs on it, but it's been a long time since a body of work, I think, that represents, traditional, if you want to call it that, Evanescence. And I think Amy felt like it was really important that, hey, we need to give our fans something. And we all agreed, like, absolutely.
And, nowadays, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Because people don't consume music the same way that we did when I was growing up. People don't go out and buy an album, and just live with it. They kind of get the songs as they come anyway. And then if they're interested, they can go and buy the album on iTunes or whatever. So,
well, it's kind of gone back around because that's how those records were in the 50s. Like all those Motown songs came out as 45s. It was a
A and a B
single
side.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think, I'm sure Amy probably touched on this, that, the first song that was supposed to come out was Use My Voice, which is the song that's out right now. And I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise because it was relevant when we wanted to put it out, but it's even more relevant now. And we were able to give it the proper treatment video-wise and everything else. But that's kind of how Wasted on You and then The Game Is Over came out. And I don't know. I think that, like what Troy was saying, I think that we're okay. I think it's cool that people are getting these first 3 songs. There's another one left to come out. And then we know what we're holding on to. That's what's exciting for us, is that we know what we have, because we went back in. We worked on some ideas in a few different times, and they were skeletal, but we had the ideas. And then when we got in with Nick, man, these things came to fucking life. And this record, I mean, everybody's like, oh, it's the best record we've ever done. I could put my left nut on it. It's incredible. I mean, this record is gonna blow people away. It's so cool.
It's been really cool, and this is really the first record that I've been a part of it from the start to the finish, because the first album I recorded on was the self-titled album, Ev3, and I came in at the end, so they had already been writing for like a year, and then I just came back into the fold, and I got writing credit on like 4 songs or something, but even those songs were mostly done. I wrote a bridge and whatever. And so this has been really cool to be here for the whole process. All the writing sessions. I mean, we had a really good time at one of the sessions in Canada. We spent a week, we set up our gear in the living room of this house, and we just jammed for a week in the living room and hung out and barbecued and drank beer. It was awesome. Totally
and
cool.
that house was like 15 minutes away from where Rush did Moving Pictures, and I think some of Permanent Waves. That picture of Neil Peart on the playing drums on the lake. There's drums are on the lake. It's like 15 minutes from this place, and I think it was kind of an omen because I think 90% of what we came up with there is on this record.
Yeah, that was a good writing session. The vibe was really so good there.
Productive.
I mean,
it's
Will,
cool,
we talk about what triggered the apocalypse, and you bring up Neil Peart. I mean, he passed away before WAAF went off the air. As a drummer, talk about his influence and what it's like it's like there isn't anything it's just Neil Peart. Like, he's one of those guys where it's like, what the hell do you say, right?
Yeah, it's like Bonham to me. It's like there was one of him and only one. Yeah. And with Neil, it's the same thing. There was one of him and only one, and there won't be another one. Like, it's just an anomaly. And there's a lot of great drummers out there, but these are guys that just really set the bar, period. And I think that what's interesting is that Nick Raskulinecz, our producer, he did the last 2 Rush albums that Rush did. He was very close with those guys. He mixed a lot of stuff for live stuff for them. The guy that was a videographer for us in these sessions and worked with Nick on his thing really came from the Rush camp and filming Rush. And I mean, when it happened, it's just like, we were all surprised. I'm sure you were too, because it was not public knowledge that he was fighting that. Nick knew, and we actually, I believe, had maybe just started mixing the chain when that happened, I think, back last year. But anyways, when we were in the studio this last time, Nick and I had a couple of nights where after the sessions was over, we went in, we started listening to some stuff that he had of them playing and stuff like that. And one of the things that he had, because he had recorded something for Neil for a DW video, one of the things that he had was they were about to go back out on the Rush, the last Rush tour they did, which I believe was R40 or something like that. I can't remember. And Neil was like, "Hey man, I'm just gonna I'm going to play through the set. So he said that Neil basically sat down behind the kit and played through a 2.5 hour set just to practice while it was there. And Nick was like, okay, cool, man, no problem. And just hung out. And what's amazing about this is that Neil did this by memory. He didn't have any music coming into his headphones. Nothing.
He just played the whole set. He was
playing the set by memory, like hearing the music in his head and just playing through a 2.5 hour set.
And not just a 2.5 hour set, a 2.5 hour rush set.
Of drum Olympics.
Yeah.
You know, like drum fucking Olympics. And like Nick's got, you know, some stuff from that, you know, like some, you know, little video stuff that's just a couple little things here and there that he's never going to share. It's just something that he has. But I was able to kind of listen to it, and I'm just like, oh, this is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And that's the kind of thing, like, everybody knows on the surface that Neil was this incredible player. But then when you start to throw into the fact that he can do that and just play it like that to memory. And then also, by the way, he was the lyricist for the band.
That's what I was just going to say. And he wrote all the lyrics, which for a drummer is not
normal.
The norm.
No, not at all. He was not a drummer. He was a drummer. He was a percussionist. He is incredible, man.
Percussionist.
Yeah, it's hard, man. And then, like, you know, another one, and I'll bring him up because he definitely deserves a nod. Another incredible drummer is Frankie Benali. You know, we just lost him, and
I know.
If for people that never saw that guy play live, you never really got to fully experience that guy because he was like the second coming of Bonham. That guy's foot was heavier than lead, and just such an incredible player and fucking cool guy. And it's another one, man.
I know 2020 is not let up at all. Like it really, it just keeps pushing. I joked with Amy, and just to warn you guys, because you didn't hear my interview with her, I may or may not have given her some inspiration on some new Evanescence music because she was not aware that the Pentagon had confirmed those UFO sightings by the fighter jets were real. She was like, no, they didn't. I go, no, Amy, UFOs are real. Like it happened this year, but in the midst of everything else 2020, it just kind of got glossed over that Tom DeLonge from Blink 182 was right about aliens the whole time. Like, what the fuck is going on?
I'm with him. Right? I'm way into that shit. I love alien shows. I totally believe in it. It's awesome. They caught him.
And so I was like, Amy, you know, like you're in the middle. We were talking about what a different experience it is having your music consumed at the same moment you're still creating it, as opposed to the lag time of like getting inspired, writing it, recording it, producing it, getting it ready to go out. And by the time it comes out, you're not in the same headspace you were in when you laid it all down. And right now, you guys are having a very strange creative moment where you're watching the reaction to your new music while you're still creating the rest of the record. Yeah. And so now maybe you're going to write about some alien shit, Troy.
Maybe.
We might. You never know.
I mean, we're getting really close to being done. And I'm actually headed out in 3 days to do some overdubs on the next batch of 4 songs. But we're getting very close. Most of the music is done. All the drums are done. So
I don't think we'll ever do a record in a traditional sense again. I really don't. I think that the plan was always to do a little block of songs, a few songs at a time. It was always that plan.
Yeah.
And really, I guess the difference now is that we did one block and then we did the rest of the record. But those songs had been in process for a long time, I guess. And we were able to kind of break up the sessions in pre-production where you kind of go through the arrangements and all that stuff into 2 different things. So it was a couple of blocks and it changed it. But I don't think that we'll ever go back to doing where we go in with, 18 songs and do pre-production and whittle it down to 10. And then we do it all at once. I don't think we'll ever do that again. If anything, I think it'll be broken up even more, where we're doing maybe 2 songs, 3 songs at a time, something like that.
Has it helped you get through mentally all of the craziness that this year has brought, having that kind of creative outlet to be able to focus on?
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's helped a lot. I mean, it's an outlet for it, and it was something that we were already looking forward to doing. But then, you know, when you're just so limited on what you can do, it was just like, okay, cool. Now we could, we can create.
Well,
and you just never know what's going to come out, when you do that. And I think that this music definitely speaks to the times. I think people will hear that. This is a very different Evanescence record.
And I think one of the coolest parts about doing this way too is that we've been able to live with these songs a little bit, because the ideas have been there for a while. And then we got into the studio and we laid down the bed of music, and then we go home while Amy works on lyrics or whatever. And like I said, I'm going back to do some overdubs. So I've been here at home listening to what we put down and getting ideas for the stuff that I want to do on the bed of music we already laid down. And usually you just make it up on the spot, and you don't really have time to give it any thought. So it's been pretty cool to be able to live with the music and get those kind of ideas instead of immediately just putting down what's in your head right then. I've played several different things on some of the songs and been able to change things.
I love hearing how you guys all, I think for anybody that is just a fan of the music and the band, they see Amy as the band. And I love hearing that it's not just Amy, that you guys are all kind of crafting this stuff together. And because that had to be hard. I mean, Amy was already so famous. Evanescence was already so well known. And you come into this band and it's like you guys all bring, like we talked about, your areas of expertise and your experience and your success in your own right. And so to hear that you guys are really doing this as a collaborative effort is really cool, and I think might be surprising to some people that just think like Amy Lee is Evanescence with some dudes that might be on stage, and that couldn't be more far from the truth.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that took time. Again, we've been in the band for almost a little over 12 years.
Yeah.
And
13.
One thing about writing, I think anybody will say, I'm sure is that, when you're writing and you're, making art, because that's what you're doing. You're making art together. It's a very intimate setting. And there's a level of trust that you have to have with whoever it is that you're working with. Emotional trust, because when you're writing, it's emotional. Like, these are things that are coming out of you as a human being. And it's emotional, and you have to trust the people in the room with you with your feelings, because you're really wearing your feelings on your sleeve for people to see. And, and
you're throwing ideas out where people are, nah, I don't like it. It hurts.
Yeah, but you got to have that trust. And Amy opened herself up to the possibility, and made herself vulnerable and allowing herself to say, all right, do I really trust these guys like this? Do I really trust them? And ultimately the answer was hell yeah. And I'm thankful for that, and
absolutely.
There's a lot of loyalty in this band between all, the four of us, also Jen, but the four of us have been together for a long time. And there's a lot of loyalty between the four of us and trust, and it's what's helped us be able to do this. And I'm telling you, man, people are going to trip out when they hear this. It's fucking cool.
This topic came up when I was talking to all of the guys like Mark Morton and Doc and Chris Traynor, and Mark was talking about that emotional openness when he worked with Chester Bennington. And my comment to that was, in order for you guys to be able to create this epic music, we, as the fans, it's like you have to put yourself through an emotional meat grinder literally for our entertainment. And we're on the consuming end of this thing. And so we were talking about people like Chris Cornell or Chester Bennington that really, if you go back and listen to all of their music, everything that they were feeling the whole time was all in there, and we were just receiving it as a commodity and a product. And that leap of faith you guys have to have with yourselves is on one level privately, but then you guys bear it for consumption to the rest of us to kind of read into whatever we want to read into it. And that is a whole other level of trust with your fans. And then I can't even imagine what that would be like. And then to have somebody be like, that song sucks. Like, I would want to kill them.
It hurts
a lot.
Yeah. The judgments, especially from people online, because they don't know how much it affects us. You know, they're just saying, that song sucks. Some people are vicious, but most people are just saying their opinion. But yeah, it can be, you know, it's like, you know, it's cliche, but it is like your baby, you know, those songs. You work really hard with this whole group of people to put out, you know, something that you really care about, and you hope people like it.
And I think that, like, I say this all the time, like, I never got into music to play in my bedroom. I got into music to, you know, to share that emotion that people, it's the reason people go to concerts. It's the reason that we, you know, get together and we celebrate this stuff, right? And I never grew up to do it in my room by myself or just be the best guy at that and do all that crap. No, I did it because I want to share it, and I want it to transcend to the masses. And it doesn't always work out that way, i.e. scrape, but it, you know, the idea is there to try to do it. But that said, I don't give a shit what people think. I never have, and I never will. I don't fucking care. If you like what I do, thank you. If you don't, I'm cool with that. And then to the people that want to be vicious about it, don't care.
I tell myself that, and then I read that shit, and I'm like, fuck that fucking person.
I just don't care, man. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's not going to, and I really come to grips with it. Maybe this is being the son of a psychiatrist, but I've really come to grips with the fact that it's not going to change my day. I don't give a shit. Like, whatever. I still got, you know, if I'm home, I still got to put gas in the car. I still got to take the trash out. I still got to cook dinner. It doesn't change anything for me.
Yeah.
You know, but at the end of the day, I can put my head down and feel really good about what I'm doing if I believe in it and I like it, you know. And when you're in a band, you know, it's a 4-way, 5-way, however many way marriage. You're not always going to totally love everything that you do. But if you can get it into the, what I would say, the 90 percentile thing, where everybody in the room's going, this is 90% incredible, that's a very successful thing.
Hell yeah.
And I think that we would say with this record, we're probably in the 98.999 percentile of everybody digging this.
I'm so happy to hear you guys so excited about this stuff at this stage in all of your careers, that you guys are so jacked up about this new music that you've been able to create in the face of every possible level of adversity that could be thrown in a band's way.
Fuck those haters and fuck COVID.
I think
we win.
It may have helped in a way too. I think for Amy, it's helped her. You know, there's a lot of shit to write about, you know, lyrically, and some of these songs. One of the songs, which I just heard Amy's vocal take on it yesterday or the day before. We wrote how many choruses? Like 8 or 10 choruses for that song musically. I mean, we
went through,
changed it so many times.
Versions. But we called it the gorilla that was on our back that we couldn't get off.
And it's finally
beat the shit out of that gorilla. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's badass.
And she's open to a different level of criticism too. I mean, let's not, you know, ignore the fact. Her and I had this conversation yesterday, and we talked about it earlier with me, is that when you're a woman in rock and roll, you know, especially going back as far as she does, and I go back a little bit further on my side of things, that, you know, I mean, heaven forbid you have a big lunch and it fucking makes the news, you know, in the rock world, if she's wearing something that, like, she's got a pound out of place. I mean, you guys, at least for the most part, that stuff doesn't even affect you. But then it's like this whole other level of, you know, keyboard warrior criticism on the internet because she's a woman too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, think about women in rock, and you go back to, you know, the 80s and the early 90s and stuff like that. And really, the only things that I can think of that were massive were Lita Ford and Hart, obviously.
Joan Jett.
And then, am I leaving somebody else out? Because I don't think I am. That were massive in the rock.
I mean, if you want to go into the pop vein, you could go Go-Go's. You could
Yeah,
go Pat
I'm talking
Benatar.
rock.
Pat Benatar.
Yeah.
Rock.
Pat Benatar.
Pat Benatar. Okay, yeah, true. But just more modern. And I think that Amy came out at a time when there wasn't that, you know.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
We had the same cast of characters in the hard rock world in terms of females. And she came into it, and I know the stories of what happened, you know, back when Evanescence got success. And it was not easy at all for her. And
I
she
remember being in
persevered.
meetings with them debating whether or not they could play female-fronted rock on the radio. And I'm in the meeting going, you fucks know I'm the DJ, right?
Yeah, yeah. Right, exactly.
Are you fucking kidding me right now?
Exactly.
Like, you know I'm going to be the one talking about the band. So are you telling me that it's going to be hard for me to talk about a band that's got a female lead singer? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, it. But here we are, and luckily there's a lot more of that now. you know? A lot more, and it's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's not just phoning it in kind of shit. It's legit. And I think that that's the thing. It's just like real stuff rises up, you know. It's like really good stuff rises up, and I think that none of that's easy, you know, particularly not in rock these days. You know, you have to fight for every inch that you get, and I'm really proud of the ladies that have done this. You know, now you got Lizzie, you've got Maria, you've got
Ash Costello.
Yes.
There's a lot of women out there now. It's awesome.
Them, man, that are crushing it. Lacey that just came out with a new solo record.
Yep.
Another one that's just killing it. So it's good to see. It's a diverse topography of rock and roll now.
Before I let you guys go, you guys have found success, obviously, in rock and roll over the years. And one of the things that is hard to do when you do that is to maintain success at home. And I bring it up because I just got married last week. So you guys are...
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right on.
So you guys are part of my... I guess honeymoon right now. So I wanted to, in the most strange way possible, ask for marital advice on being married to someone that is not in the business and how it is that you balance that.
My wife is right in the background, and we've been together for
over 20 years, right?
21 years and married for 19, I think. Yeah, you've met my wife, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think that I don't know.
It definitely takes some understanding and patience and communication. All three of those are very important because
Troy's just laughing. And I'm assuming it's because you feel bad for him. You can be honest. Is that?
It's on both ends, actually. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you have kids and then you come home for 2 weeks while your wife has the baby, and then you're like, I gotta go, and you're out again, and then she's alone with the baby, and you're missing everything. You know, it's shitty on both sides. You know, in different ways.
I say, like, people say to me a lot of times, like, you know, God, it's got to be such an adjustment. You coming home, you know, it's the same thing I've been getting for 30 fucking years of being on tour. It's got to be such a weird adjustment for you to come home. And I'm like, yeah, you know, it is weird for me. But you know what? It's
weird
probably
for them
as
too.
weird, if not weirder, for my wife and my daughter, because, you know, they're used to me not being there for 6 weeks at a time, and they're smooth sailing. You know, they got their ship running like tip top. And then all of a sudden, there's another asshole with an opinion in the house. And it's like, wait a second, we didn't ask you. Yeah, but I'm offering my opinion. I think this is, you know, we need to do it this way. We don't get it.
Do you even live here, bro?
Yeah, do you even live here, bro? It's like,
you're just on vacation.
Totally. Yeah, I know. Like, don't you have a tour, like 2 weeks in? Don't you have a tour to go on to? That's been the adjustment now with this COVID thing. Is that, you know, my wife and my daughter, who's now in college, by the way, in Tampa, but, you know, they're, you know, like, it was great the first 3 months of this, you know, but I've got ADD and I gotta go, man. I gotta keep doing shit. And by the time, 3 months into this, I wore them the fuck out. And then, they're like, God damn it. Don't you have a tour to go on to? Don't you have someplace to be? It's like, we love you. We do. But,
So this theme comes back all the time, and this will be my last question. Troy, do you only have sons?
I've got one son, yeah. And, I have another sort of son. He's not biologically my son, but I've taken him under
family.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it.
Because so this is I'm collecting the people. The list is short. I can count them on one hand. The number of rock stars I know that avoided having a beautiful daughter and avoided rock star revenge. And I know Will has a beautiful daughter. And Troy, you are literally on a short list with Kid Rock, Tommy Lee, Des Fafara.
Which, by the way, how the hell did he
exactly
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the curse is backwards. I think it's backwards.
You think the curse is having sons?
Yeah.
Or you think that you should have deserved the sons and those? I think, I don't know how Tommy Lee and Kid Rock avoided having daughters.
Exactly.
Yeah. But out of, I literally ask every musician that I know this question because it's disproportionate. The number of musicians that just have beautiful daughters as opposed to the ones that just have sons. And it's like Troy, you are a unicorn wrapped in an enigma.
That's right. I've never done anything mean to anybody.
What are you saying? Your drummer has?
I don't know.
Right.
Right?
Only he knows.
Guys, I can't thank you enough for being so generous with your time and being so supportive of my new venture and trying to keep the New England rock scene together and really trying to trudge through 2020 like everybody else and just trying to figure it the fuck out. And so the fact that all of the bands have been so supportive and just, generous with their time and all your love and everything over the years, it really means a lot. So I thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Hey, we love you, man.
It's great to see you, and I wish you the best of luck with your podcasts and your station.
And I hope that you do win the Powerball so that you can buy the station.
Fuck
and,
yeah.
Wouldn't that be
correct
amazing?
all the wrongs. The apocalypse will stop.
Oh my God, that was so much fun. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Episode 14 of the Mistress Carrie podcast generated quite a playlist. In the description of this podcast, you can click the link and check out the badass playlist of all of the music we talked about. I cannot wait to hear the rest of this Evanescence record. Once again, thanks to Latini Creative Solutions at latinicreative.com and Jumptown Skydiving at jumptown.com for sponsoring this week's episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And thanks to all of the people that have a Mistress Carrie backstage pass. You can get yours at patreon.com/Mistress Carrie. If you're looking for me online, you can obviously find me on Twitter and YouTube and Cameo if you want me to make you a Cameo video at Mistress Carrie and at Mistress Carrie WAF on Instagram and on Facebook, where you can join me every Tuesday night at 8:30 for Cocktails in the War Room. If you like what you heard, don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss an episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And if you don't mind, leave a comment and a 5-star review, and there's lots of great stuff coming.
To celebrate joining Pantheon Podcasts, Rock Camp, the podcast, the official podcast of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, is giving away a guitar signed by Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater, Marty Friedman, formerly of Megadeth, and legendary shredder Zakk Wylde, plus our rockstar counselors like Vinny Appice, Monty Pittman, and more. To enter to win, simply follow, rate, and review our podcast on your preferred platform, and that's all you have to do. For more information, go to rockcamp.com/podcast.